Hello and welcome to my channel. I'd like to present a new original story inspired by real events.
When my parents made me cook a holiday dinner for 25 people instead of working in Hawaii, they had no idea that a week later my makeup would be on billboards all over town. When Mom disparagingly called my makeup job child's play, she didn't know that I'd received an offer to shoot a prestigious ad campaign that could change my entire career. And when my dad demanded that I give up the nonsense and stay home to clean for their anniversary, he had no idea that I would choose my dream over their next whim. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a normal workday turned into the moment I finally realized it's time to stop being a servant to my own family. Before I go any further, if you know the feeling when loved ones don't take your dreams seriously, please give it a like and subscribe. There's a story ahead about how I learned to stand up for myself. Write in the comments what city you're from and what time it is. I'm interested to know who understands me. Now let me go back to the day that changed everything. My name is Jessica Campbell. I'm 24 years old, and for the past 3 years I've been living with my parents in Pasadena after graduating from college. I was planning on staying for a couple months until I got back on my feet, but the temporary solution stuck. I work as a freelance makeup artist, which means unstable income and a constant need to find new clients. My mom and dad regularly remind me of this instability, as if I'm not aware of it myself. I live in a small room on the second floor, the same room I slept in as a teenager. The walls are still peach, and the shelves are filled with high school awards for good grades and a photo from my graduation from UCLA, where I studied art and design. Every morning I wake up feeling stuck in the past, but every workday reminds me why I don't want to give up. I have talent and I know it, even if my family thinks otherwise. My parents, Linda and David Campbell, have worked for an insurance company for over 20 years. They value stability above all else and genuinely don't understand why they would trade a secure corporate career for something as unpredictable as creativity. In their world, success is measured by salary and benefits package, not job satisfaction. When I tell them about my projects, they listen with the same expression on their faces that parents listen to children's stories about imaginary friends, condescending and with poorly concealed irritation. In the 3 years we've been together, we've developed a certain system. I pay for groceries and help around the house. They provide me with a roof over my head. Sounds fair, but in practice, help around the house has turned into almost complete housekeeping. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, shopping, all these gradually became my responsibilities. My parents explain this by saying that they have a hard job and I have a free schedule. A free schedule means that I don't work from 9 to 17 in an office, which means, according to their logic, I have plenty of time for household chores. This morning, I woke up earlier than usual because I had an important shoot to do. The studio was in an old building on Colorado Avenue, and every time I walked up the creaky steps to the second floor, I felt a slight thrill. The building had that special atmosphere of a creative space. High ceilings, large windows, walls covered with the work of local artists and photographers. Today's job was special. A local boutique had commissioned promotional materials for a new collection, and photographer Rachel had specifically asked me to work with the models. Rachel Martinez is one of those people who knows how to create magic out of ordinary things. A short Latina with graying hair gathered in a bun and shrewd brown eyes, she has been in the industry for 15 years. Her portfolio included shoots for regional magazines, local brands, and even a few national campaigns. Most importantly, she was one of the few people who saw me as a professional and not as a girl playing with makeup. A model named Chiara was already sitting in a chair, patiently waiting for me to get everything ready. A young African-American woman in her early 20s with incredibly beautiful skin and expressive eyes, the perfect face for a spring campaign. High cheekbones, full lips, a long, graceful neck nature had more than favored her. But a beautiful face is only half the battle. My job was to emphasize that beauty, make it photogenic and appropriate to the concept of the shoot. I laid out the brushes on my work table, each in its place like surgical instruments. A flat brush for foundation, a fluffy one for powder, a pointed one for precise lines, a fan brush for blending. I opened the shadow palettes, checked the shades in the studio light. The light here was special, soft but bright without harsh shadows, perfect for shooting beauty images. Today we're doing something fresh, natural but with a twist, I explained to Ciara as I gently cleansed her face with micellar water, emphasizing the eyes but in a way that looks light and natural. She nodded, closing her eyes. I started with foundation, evening out her skin tone with a thin layer of foundation. Tiara had naturally beautiful skin, so thick coverage wasn't necessary. Just a light correction and even out the tone. My work required not only technical skills, but also the ability to see the potential of each face, to understand how to emphasize the natural beauty without overdoing it. The concept of the collection is urban chic with boho elements, Rachel explained as she looked through the outfits on the racks. I wanted the makeup to complement the looks but not overshadow the clothes. I nodded, picking out a palette of natural shades beige, brown, light gold accents. The earth tones were perfect for this shoot, giving a natural feel but adding depth and definition to the look. I worked slowly and thoughtfully, blending each shade to the perfect transition. First, I applied a base light beige tone to the entire mobile eyelid, then a warm brown in the crease to create depth, a light golden glare on the inner corners of the eyes and under the eyebrow. Every stroke of the brush was precise. Too much pigment can be removed, but it's much harder to correct uneven blending. "You have such a delicate technique," Shira said as I worked with the mascara. "Makeup artists are usually in a hurry." "There's no rush," I said, carefully working each lash, especially when the result will be seen on the big screen or in print. Every inaccuracy is visible there. In an hour of work, I had created an image that exceeded my own expectations. Ciara looked at herself in the mirror with admiration, and Rachel was already starting the first test shots. The makeup turned out perfectly balanced, expressive enough for the camera, yet natural and modern. The shoot lasted 4.5 hours. We changed outfits, from light summer dresses to strict pantsuits, from bohemian cardigans to elegant blouses. For each look, I adjusted the makeup, adding more glitter for the evening look or removing excess for the daytime office style. Tiara was a true professional. She was able to instantly transform, conveying the character of each outfit through poses and facial expressions. By the end of the day, I felt the pleasant fatigue of a creative person who had spent time doing something she loved. My hands smelled of makeup, my eyes were slightly watery from the bright studio light, but my soul was full of satisfaction. I had some serious new work in my portfolio that could attract the attention of bigger clients and advertising agencies. "Thank you, Jess," Rachel said, reviewing the footage on the camera screen. "We'll definitely be working together again. You have a real talent for commercial makeup." "When can I see the results?" I asked, gathering my brushes and makeup. "Processing will take 5 days, then the material will go to the customer. If everything goes well, the commercial will appear in 2 weeks. I promise to send the final pictures." I drove home in high spirits, mentally replaying the whole day and analyzing what turned out to be particularly successful. Days like this reminded me why I chose this profession, despite the instability of my income and my family's skeptical attitude. There was something magical about my work, the ability to transform people, to help them feel more confident and beautiful, to create images that would later be seen by thousands of people. Friday evening traffic in Pasadena moved slowly, but it didn't annoy me. I turned on the radio, which was playing some nice indie music, and enjoyed the rare moments of peace between work and household chores. Outside the window, familiar streets floated by. Stores, cafes, small offices, and apartment buildings with manicured lawns. Parking outside my parents' house in Altadena, I lingered in the car for a moment, savoring the silence. Tomorrow was going to be a normal morning with reminders that it was time to get a normal job and an evening with cooking dinner for the whole family. But today gave me the energy to continue on my path, even if that path didn't yet lead to financial stability. Our house is a typical 30s California bungalow with white walls, a red tile roof, and a small front garden. Mom was proud of the house. She and Dad had bought it 25 years ago when they were first married. And since then, they had been renovating, improving, beautifying. For them, it was a symbol of success and stability, proof that hard work and good decisions lead to results. I entered the house through the back door, taking my shoes off in the hallway as usual. The smell of home-cooked food told me that my mom had already made dinner, probably her signature meatloaf with mashed potatoes. My parents were sitting at the kitchen table with a piece of paper in front of them, talking seriously about something. When Mom saw me, she straightened up and smiled that special smile that usually meant she had plans for me. "Jessica, it's great that you came," she said in a cheerful tone. "Sit down. There's something we need to talk about." I hung my bag on the hook by the door and sat down at the table, already sensing that my good mood was about to be ruined. The sheet of paper was a list. It was neatly organized into categories in my mom's handwriting. "We've decided to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary," Mom announced solemnly. "April 12th will be exactly 25 years since Dad and I got married. We plan to invite all of our family and close friends." "That's wonderful," I said, genuinely happy for them. "A silver wedding is a big date." "Exactly," Dad nodded. "And we want to celebrate it in style. 25 guests, a festive table, decorations. Everything has to be top-notch." Mom moved the list closer to me, and I saw the familiar words: Jessica, cooking; Jessica, cleaning; Jessica, serving; Jessica, shopping. My name appeared in front of every item of the party organization. "We've already worked out the menu," Mom continued, not noticing my changed expression. "Roast turkey, Caesar salad, potato casserole, grilled vegetables, homemade bread. For dessert, cake and fruit salad. I think you'll need 2 days to prepare." 2 days? I questioned. "To cook for 25 people? "Well, a day for shopping and prepping, a day for the main cooking," Dad explained, "plus the general cleaning of the house the day before. You know how picky Aunt Dorothy and Uncle Frank are." I tried to remain calm, though I was growing irritated inside. After a successful day at work, full of creative energy and professional accomplishments, I was back to being a domestic servant. "What if I'm busy these days?" I asked cautiously. Mom laughed as if I had said something very funny. "Busy doing what? With your tassels?" She waved her hand. "Jessica, it's a family holiday. It's our holiday. Your toys can wait." The word toys sounded like a slap in the face. I sat at the kitchen table, looking at the list with my name against each item, and felt resentment boiling up inside. All day I had been creating beauty, working with professionals, doing what I do best, and I was greeted at home with plans to turn me into a waitress and a chef. "Mom, these aren't toys," I said quietly. "This is my job." "A job?" Dad raised his eyebrows. "Jessica, let's be realistic. How much did you make last month? Enough to pay your rent?" He knew the answer. We all knew the answer. March was a bad month, just 2 small shoots and a few private event makeup clients. Barely enough for gas and makeup. "It doesn't always work out consistently," I started, but my mom interrupted. "Exactly. And we give you stability. A roof over your head, food, no utility bills. In return, we ask for a little help with the family holiday. Just a little bit. Cook dinner for 25 people, clean the house, set the table, keep an eye on the guests. It's not much." I pictured myself in an apron, scurrying between the kitchen and the living room while my parents accepted congratulations and enjoyed the attention. "Okay," I said tiredly. "I'll help." "Great," Mom glowed. "I knew I could count on you. I'll make a detailed shopping plan tomorrow." We ate dinner in relative silence. My parents were discussing the guest list, debating whether to rent extra chairs or to make do with the existing ones. I chewed mechanically on my mom's meatloaf and thought about how I was sinking more and more into the role of domestic servant every month. After dinner, I went up to my room and sat down at my computer to process the photos from today's shoot for my portfolio. Working with images always made me feel good. I could perfect every detail, correct minor flaws, and emphasize the good moments. In the digital world, I had complete control, unlike in real life. The phone rang around 10 p.m. Rachel. "Jess, I hope I didn't wake you." Her voice sounded excited. "I have incredible news." "No, I'm awake. What's wrong?" Remember I told you about my friend Sophia who works in Los Angeles with big brands? Well, she just called. They have a project on fire. They need a team of makeup artists to shoot an ad campaign for a cosmetics brand in Hawaii. I pulled myself away from the computer screen. Hawaii? One of their makeup artists is sick. The other one is busy on another project. They're looking for a replacement. Sophia needs a portfolio and a reference, and I showed her your work. Jess, she loved it. She wants you on the team. My heart is beating faster. Working with a major brand, shooting in Hawaii, the opportunity to work with top photographers and models. It was the chance that every aspiring makeup artist dreams of. Tell me more about it, I asked, trying not to show my excitement. The brand is called Azure Coast, and they are launching a new line of summer cosmetics. The shoot will take place on the island of Oahu, mostly on beaches and tropical locations. The team consists of 3 makeup artists, 2 photographers, a stylist, and a coordinator, plus 5 models. How many days? A week, departing April 19th, returning April 26th. All expenses paid by the client, flights, hotel, meals, plus a fee of $5,000 for a week's work in paradise, more than I made in 3 good months. That's amazing, I exhaled. But Rachel, April 19th is my parents' wedding anniversary. They're planning a big celebration. Oh, Rachel's voice became sympathetic. I know family's important, but Jess, think about it. It's Azure Coast. If you do well, they can get you on the permanent team. They've got contracts all over the world. Paris, Tokyo, New York. After I talked to Rachel, I couldn't sleep for a long time. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling and running through the possibilities in my head. Dream job versus family duty, career breakthrough versus cooking a turkey for 25 people. By morning, I had made a decision. I needed to talk to my parents, explain to them how important this was to my career. Maybe they would understand. Maybe they'd be supportive. At breakfast, I pulled myself together. Mom, Dad, I was offered a very important job yesterday, I began, trying to speak calmly. What kind of job? Mom didn't take her eyes off her morning paper. A beauty brand campaign shoot in Hawaii. Big project, big fee. This could be a real career breakthrough for me. Dad looked up from his coffee. Hawaii? When? April 19th through 26th. Mom put the paper down abruptly. April 19th? Jessica, are you crazy? It's our anniversary on the 12th. It'll take all week to get ready. Mom, listen, please. It's Azure Coast, the biggest cosmetics brand in the world. If I do well, they might hire me as a permanent team member. Can you imagine the prospects? Prospects. Dad put the cup down with a clatter. Jessica, what prospects? You've been living at home for 3 years, barely making ends meet, and now you're going to leave your family for some pictures? I'm not abandoning my family. I was outraged. I'm trying to build a career. A career. Mom laughed bitterly. My dear, look at yourself soberly. You're 24 years old. When I was your age, I was already working in an insurance company. I had a stable salary. I could plan for the future. And you're still playing with makeup bags. It's not a game. I felt my voice getting louder. It's a profession. I have a talent. Talent? Dad shook his head. Jessica, talent is when people are willing to pay for it. Real money, all the time. Not a couple $100s a month. That's why I need this job. I got up from my desk. To get to the next level, to get regular clients, to make real money. In Hawaii? My mom looked at me in disbelief. Jessica, wake up. It's not a job. It's a vacation disguised as a job. You're being offered a vacation at our expense. On us? I don't get it. Who's going to pay your expenses while you're having fun on the beach? Dad explained. Who's going to cover your share of the family budget? We are. All expenses are paid by the client, plus a fee of $5,000. $5,000, Mom said it as if it were pennies. For a week's work. Jessica, if it was a real job, you'd get paid a decent wage every month. I felt rage boiling up inside me. They wouldn't listen. They didn't want to understand. To them, my dream was the whim of a spoiled little girl. This is a real job, I said slowly, and I'm going to take it. No, Dad said firmly. You're not. What does no mean? It means that as long as you're living in this house on our money, you'll have the family's best interests in mind, Dad said calmly, but you could hear the steel in his voice. It's our anniversary. We're counting on your help. End of story. I'm not a child, I exploded. I'm 24 years old. I'm making my own career decisions. Then pay for your own career, my mom said coldly. Rent an apartment, buy your own food, pay your own bills. And while you have our support, please respect our requests. Your requests? I almost shouted. Cooking for 25 people is a request. Cleaning the whole house is a request. Yes. Mom stood up and looked down at me. It's a request to help the family on the big day. But if you think your entertainment is more important than us, please. Only then don't count on our understanding in the future. She sounded threatened. If I go to Hawaii, it'll be the ultimate breakup. They won't forgive me for betraying family interests. Rachel said I had to give you an answer by tonight, I said, trying to pull myself together. Then give it to me. Dad went back to his paper. Just think carefully about the consequences. I left the kitchen and went up to my room. My hands were shaking with anger and despair. The sun was shining outside the window, birds were singing, a neighbor's dog was barking somewhere, an ordinary Saturday morning. And for me, this morning could be a turning point in my life. I sat down at my computer and opened the Azure Coast brand website. Glossy photos of beautiful girls against the ocean, professional images, quality that only big companies could afford. It was exactly the level I was aiming for. Then I opened a bank account. $2,300. This would be enough for a maximum of 3 months rent the cheapest studio, and that without taking into account food, gasoline, professional cosmetics. My parents were right about one thing. Financially, I was completely dependent on them. But they were wrong about one thing. My job is not a game. It's a calling, and this trip could be the key to independence. Around noon, Rachel called. Did you decide? I could hear the hope in her voice. Sophia's waiting to hear back. Rachel, I need a little more time. Jess, I know it's hard, but think about it. When's the next chance? It's not every day Azure Coast is looking for new people to join their team. And if I say no, they'll never consider me again? Probably not. They have a steady base of proven talent. They'd only hire you because it's an emergency. After the conversation, I sat at the window for a long time, looking out at the street. Mrs. Carter's neighbor was watering her roses. The kids were playing basketball on the playground across the street. The measured, predictable life of suburbia. It was exactly the kind of life my parents wanted for me, stable, safe, boring. By late afternoon, I had made my decision. I went downstairs to the living room where my parents were watching TV. I'm canceling my trip to Hawaii, I said. Mom smiled contentedly. Good for you. I knew you'd make the right decision. But I want you to know that I'm not doing this because I agree with you. I'm doing this because I can't afford to live apart yet. It doesn't matter why. Dad didn't take his eyes off the screen. The important thing is that you stay to help your family. That night, I called Rachel and relayed my rejection. Her upset was almost palpable through the phone. I'm sorry, Jess. Really sorry. I know you are. Thanks for thinking of me. Look, what if we tried to work things out with your parents? Maybe find a compromise? No, I said tiredly. I don't think so. It's a done deal. But as I lay in bed that night, I knew something inside me had broken. Not just cracked, but broken. And I wasn't sure I could fix it. The next few days passed in a strange fog. I mechanically did the usual things, worked with clients, went to the store, cooked dinners, but I felt empty inside. It was as if a part of me remained on that phone call with Rachel when I uttered the word refuse. An opportunity that could have changed my life had slipped away, and I hadn't even tried to really fight for it. My mom was happy with my decision and didn't bring it up again, but sometimes I caught her scrutinizing gaze. It was like she was checking to see if I'd changed my mind, if I was plotting a secret escape. Dad was his usual polite but detached self, as if the whole conflict over Hawaii had been a minor misunderstanding that had been resolved. Wednesday night, Mom handed me my anniversary shopping list. 3 pages of small handwriting, from pickling spices to napkins of a certain shade. She wrote down every detail, including the brands of food and where to buy it. "Tomorrow you'll go to Walmart for the basics, Friday to the deli for turkey and cheeses," she instructed. "Saturday morning is the last run for fresh vegetables and flowers." "Okay," I replied, putting the lists in my bag. "And don't forget the tablecloths. Our old ones aren't the right color anymore. We need new ones, cream or light gold." I nodded. I hadn't cared much the last few days. Let there be cream-colored tablecloths, let there be turkey and a honey marinade, let there be a general cleaning with chandelier cleaning and silver polishing. I did what I was asked to do and tried not to think about the fact that these were the same days the Azure Coast team was preparing to fly to Oahu. On Thursday, as I was returning from the store with a trunk full of groceries, an unfamiliar car was parked outside my house. A dark blue Lexus with Orange County license plates. As I walked in the back door, I heard voices from the living room. My mom was talking to someone, laughing that special laugh she turned on when people were important. "Jessica, come here," she called out. "Meet Sandra." I left the bags on the kitchen table and walked into the living room. On the sofa sat an elegant woman in her 50s, wearing an expensive suit and impeccably styled. Sandra Holbrook. I recognized her from the pictures in my mom's phone. A childhood friend who had married the owner of a chain of car dealerships and now lived in Newport Beach. "Here she is, my daughter." Mom stood up and put her arm around my shoulders. "Sandra, this is Jessica." "Nice to meet you." Sandra gave me an appraising look. "Linda has told me so much about you." "Likewise," I replied, wondering what my mom had told me. "Sandra stopped by to discuss our anniversary present," Mom explained. "David and I have been wanting a new TV for the living room, and she offered to help us pick one out." "How nice," I said, not knowing what else to say. "Come sit with us," Sandra offered. "I was just asking my mom what you're doing. Finished college and then what?" Mom tensed up a little. The subject of my career was a sensitive one, especially in front of strangers. "Jessica is looking for herself," Mom began cautiously. "She's living at home for now, helping us out." "What's her major?" Sandra was clearly in the mood for a detailed conversation. "Art and design," I answered. "I work as a makeup artist." "How interesting," Sandra perked up. "Makeup artist. My daughter Nicole is also interested in makeup. True, she went to law school, but as a hobby, why not? Do you work at a salon?" "Freelance," I said. "Shooting, private clients, events." "I see." Sandra nodded, a hint of sympathy in her voice. It must be hard in such a competitive field. Her mom hurried to intervene in the conversation. "We think Jessica should consider something a little more stable. Creativity is great, but you have to think about the future." Of course," Sandra agreed. "You can't get a stable job these days, and a makeup artist is still—" She didn't finish, but the meaning was clear. "Makeup artist is not serious." "Jessica is very talented," Mom said suddenly, and for a second I thought she was going to defend me. "But you see, Sandra, sometimes you have to choose between dreams and reality." "Absolutely," Sandra nodded. "Nicole wanted to be an actress too, but we steered her in the right direction. Now she works in a prestigious law firm making great money." "Exactly." Mom was clearly happy to find an ally. "We try to explain to Jessica that you have to be realistic." I sat between them, listening to them talk about themselves in the third person, and felt like an exhibit in a museum. "Here's a failed daughter who still hasn't found a real job." "Had there been a particular case recently?" Sandra asked with the curiosity of a gossip columnist. Mom hesitated for a moment, then made up her mind. "Imagine, last week she was offered a trip to Hawaii, supposedly to work with some cosmetics company, right before our anniversary." "Hawaii?" Sandra raised her eyebrows. "Yeah, a week at a resort under the guise of a job, and here we were supposed to be organizing a party for 25 people. "I see," Sandra said. "So?" "Thank God Jessica had the good sense to say no." My mother smiled approvingly. "After all, family is more important than any kind of fun." The word fun sounded especially contemptuous. My potential career, the chance to work with a major cosmetics brand, the chance to make $5,000 in a week, all of that was fun. You did the right thing, Sandra agreed. Family first. And frankly, these creative professions, Linda, I think a lot of young people just don't want to grow up. They're all looking for some special, interesting job instead of finding a normal place and a stable income. That's right. Mom's got a lot of energy. That's what I always tell Jessica. Look at your classmates. Most of them are already working in offices, building their careers, buying cars, and she's just playing around. Playing makeup artist, Sandra said, shaking her head. Although, of course, as a hobby it can be interesting. I have a friend who does makeup for her girlfriends at weddings, but it's not a job in the full sense of the word. Exactly. Mom was thrilled to understand. A hobby and a job are different things, but young people don't realize that. They think they can live on dreams. I sat in silence, feeling something hot and painful inside. Not just resentment, something much deeper, a realization, a final, merciless understanding. My parents didn't just not support my career, they were ashamed of it. To outsiders, my work became a game, a pastime, a hobby. Something frivolous that you can do in your spare time, but which should never claim to be a real profession. The main thing is that Jessica helps us, Mom continued. Real help to the family is much more important than any creative experiments. Creative experiments. Another euphemism for what I considered my vocation. Do you plan to channel it in a more practical way? Sandra asked. We're trying, Mom sighed. But you know how young people are, stubborn. They think their parents don't understand anything about modern life. Yeah, I know, Sandra nodded. It was the same with Nicole. I had to be firm. I had to give her an ultimatum. She could either go to law school or support herself. That was a wise decision, Mom said. Sometimes toughness is a sign of love. They continued to discuss me, making plans to fix me, talking about the best way to get me to quit stupid stuff and get a real job. I listened and felt something finally die inside. Not the hope of understanding. That had died earlier. It was the need for their approval that was dying. All these years I had thought that if I was a good enough daughter, if I helped around the house, didn't cause problems, didn't demand money, they would eventually accept my choices, recognize that I have talent, support my endeavors. But they were never going to support me. To them, I was a loser who refused to grow up, a source of mild embarrassment when talking to successful acquaintances, a free housekeeper who, in return for shelter and food, must give up her own ambitions. So, Jessica, have you started your anniversary preparations yet? Sandra turned to me, apparently having decided to include the subject in the conversation. Yes, I answered. I'm going grocery shopping tomorrow. Good for you, praised Mom. You see, Sandra, when it comes to family, Jessica is always ready to help. That's great, Sandra smiled. Family values are the foundation of everything. And work. Work can wait. It's all about being useful to your family, to be useful to the people you care about. I was useful. Cooking, cleaning, grocery shopping, organizing parties, everything but the things I was really good at. What kind of menu are you planning? Sandra asked. Mom began to talk enthusiastically about the roast turkey, salads, desserts, about how carefully everything had been thought out, what exquisite combinations of flavors. She said, we plan, we cook, but both knew who would be standing at the stove for 8 hours straight. Sounds delicious, Sandra marveled. I'm already looking forward to the feast. It's going to be a memorable evening, Mom promised. Jessica will make sure everything is perfect. Of course she will. Jessica will take care of it. Jessica will cook. Jessica will clean. Jessica will serve the guests while Mom and Dad accept congratulations and enjoy the attention. And then, when the party's over, Jessica will wash the dishes and clean the house, and everyone will say what wonderful children the Campbells have. How homely Jessica is and how well-mannered she is. No one will ask about her dreams, her plans, her desires, because domestics don't have dreams. Excuse me, I have some shopping to do, I said, standing up. Of course, dear. Mom waved her hand. We'll talk to Sandra again. I walked out of the living room and heard Mom lower her voice. You see how responsible she is. She may not be the most ambitious, but she's reliable. Not the most ambitious. Another blow. My ambition to become a successful makeup artist, to work with famous brands, to create beauty. None of this was considered ambition. It was a whim. In the kitchen, I slowly sorted through bags of groceries. Turkey for roasting, 4 kilograms, potatoes for roasting, 5 pounds, cream, butter, spices, vegetables. That's enough food for a small restaurant. Tomorrow I'll go shopping for the rest. The day after tomorrow I'll start cooking. Sunday I'll get up at 5 a.m. to put the turkey in the oven. I'll be in the kitchen all day, carving, roasting, boiling, decorating. Then I'll set the table, arrange the flowers, light the candles. The guests will arrive at 7 p.m. They will admire the festive table, praise the food, raise toasts to the silver wedding. Mom and Dad will shine with happiness and pride, and I will carry dishes from the kitchen, refill the wine, clean up dirty plates. And no one will think to say thank you to the person who made this party possible. I put the last jar of olives in the cupboard and closed the door. There was almost no room left in the refrigerator. The food was taking up all the shelves. Tomorrow was another shopping expedition. Laughter came from the living room. Mom and Sandra were discussing something fun, enjoying the camaraderie. They must have switched to other topics: Sandra's children, mutual acquaintances, the latest gossip. The topic of the failed daughter was exhausted. I went up to my room and sat on my bed. Outside the window, the sun was setting, coloring the sky pink and orange. Somewhere out there, beyond that sky, was the Azure Coast crew getting ready for my dream shoot. They may have already picked my replacement. Perhaps they hadn't even noticed that someone had turned down the chance of a lifetime. I picked up my phone and opened the airline's website. A ticket to Honolulu for April 19th was $900 one way. I had $2,300 in my account. Technically, I could buy the ticket right now. But then what? Where would I live when I got back? What would I use to buy makeup for work? How do I explain my act to my parents? I closed the website and put my phone on the nightstand. There were still voices coming from downstairs. Sandra was leaving. Sounds of goodbyes, compliments exchanged, promises of a quick reunion. A few minutes later, the front door slammed, the Lexus engine started, and the car drove away. Mom went upstairs and looked into my room. "Sandra is such a nice woman," she said, leaning against the door jamb. "We've arranged for her and her husband to get us a TV for our anniversary." "That's great," I said without turning around. "She spoke very highly of you," Mom continued. "She said you were a well-mannered and sensible girl. Well-mannered and sensible. To put it in ordinary language, obedient and uninvolved." "I'm glad to hear that." Mom was quiet for a moment, and then she asked, "You didn't get upset about the job talk?" I turned around and looked at her. She was standing in the doorway, smiling slightly guiltily, but there wasn't a twinge of regret in her eyes. "No," I said. "Now I know what you really think of my job." "Jessica, you realize we only wish you well, right?" Mom came into the room and sat on the edge of the bed. "We want you to have a stable life, confidence in the future." "I understand." "Then why are you so sad?" I looked into her eyes and saw genuine incomprehension. She really couldn't understand what was broken in me today. To her, it was just a friendly visit, a pleasant conversation with a friend, a little discussion about her daughter's problems, and nothing more. "I'm not sad," I said. "I'm just tired." "Of course you are. So much to do before the holiday. But it's okay. It'll all be over soon, and we'll have a great anniversary." She kissed me on the forehead and left the room. I was left alone with my thoughts and the final realization that I would never get what I needed from my parents. Not going to get the support, the understanding, the respect for my choices. They loved me in their own way, but their love was possessive, controlling. They loved the obedient daughter who helps around the house and doesn't cause problems. They didn't love the real me, the woman with dreams, plans, talent. And for the first time in many months, I thought not about how to earn their approval, but how to break out of this cage, beautiful and comfortable, but still a cage. The solution came to me in a dream. More precisely, in that moment between sleep and wakefulness, when my consciousness had not yet switched on the usual filters and limitations. I woke up Saturday morning with absolute clarity in my head. I'm flying to Hawaii. Everything else will have to wait. For the first half hour after waking up, I lay still, listening to the sounds of the house. My mom was already up. The dishes were rattling in the kitchen. The TV was on. Dad was taking a shower. I could hear the sound of water. An ordinary Saturday morning on the eve of an important family event. The last day of preparations for the anniversary. I picked up my phone and dialed Rachel's number. It was only 7 in the morning, but I knew she got up early. "Jess?" My friend's sleepy voice sounded surprised. "Is something wrong?" "Rachel, tell me honestly. If I call Sophia today and tell her I'm ready to fly, is there even the slightest chance that a seat is still available?" Pause. I could hear Rachel finally waking up. "Jess, are you serious? Yesterday you said the decision was final. I changed my mind. Is there a chance or not? I don't know. They've probably found a replacement by now, but, it's worth a try." "Are you sure? What about the family party?" "The family party won't need me. Can you call Sophia?" "Right now?" "Jess, it's only 7 o'clock in the morning." 9 o'clock then. Please, Rachel, it's very important." After we talked, I went down to the kitchen. Mom was at the stove, frying eggs for breakfast. On the table was the same shopping list, complete with new items. "Good morning, sweetheart," she said friendly. "Did you sleep well? Today is the last day of preparation. We need to buy fresh groceries." "Good morning," I replied, pouring coffee. "Yes, I remember about the shopping." "Oh, good. I've mapped out a route. First the farmer's market for vegetables and flowers, then Walmart for the little things we forgot yesterday. I think you should be done by lunch." I nodded, pretending to study the list. In reality, I was planning a completely different itinerary. If Sophia needed me, I'd have a few hours to pack at most. Dad came down to breakfast in high spirits. "Tomorrow's the big day," he announced, sitting down at the table. 25 years together. A worthy cause for celebration. "Sure," I agreed. "You guys are great. And you, Jessica, are a real help." Dad smiled at me. It wasn't every daughter who would take on such a big job. If only he knew what I was thinking right this second. "Family is the most important thing," I said with a stone face. I was in my room at 9 in the morning when the phone rang. Rachel. "Jess, I have news." Her voice sounded excited. "I got through to Sophia. Their replacement backed out at the last minute. Some personal problems. The seat's available." My heart jumped. "Seriously?" "Absolutely serious. But there's a condition. You have to make a decision within the hour, and if you do, the flight leaves tomorrow morning. Sunday. Tomorrow morning. Parents' anniversary." "What time's the flight?" 11 a.m. out of LA. That means you have to be at the airport at 9. I did some quick math. It would take an hour to get to the airport with Sunday traffic. So we'd have to leave at 8 a.m. The anniversary dinner was scheduled for 1 o'clock. "I'm in," I said without a second thought. "You sure?" "Jess, think again. It's going to be a scandal with your parents." "I've been thinking all night. I'm in." "Okay." Cell phone ringing. "Then Sophia expects a call from you in half an hour. I'm texting her number." After I talked to Sophia, things got crazy fast. The contract was emailed. I signed it and sent it back. Information about the flight, the hotel, the shooting program, it all came within an hour. The airplane ticket was paid for by the company, but I had to book it myself. While my parents were doing their Saturday things, I was methodically preparing for my escape. That's what you could call it, an escape. I'd run away from home on the day of a family holiday, leaving my parents to deal with dinner for 25 people. But the strange thing was, I felt no guilt, just relief and anticipation. The first thing I did was book a plane ticket through the airline's website, $1,100 with the rush and a Sunday flight. Painful but bearable. Then I pulled my travel bag out of the closet and started packing. Professional cosmetics are the most important thing. I carefully packed all the palettes, brushes, mascara, foundations. The cosmetic bag turned out heavy, but without this arsenal, I would be useless on the set. Clothes, summer dresses, swimsuits, lightweight pants, and tops. In Hawaii in April, the temperature stays around 25 degrees. Documents, chargers, camera, sunscreen. I packed quickly and methodically, trying not to forget anything important. I didn't buy a return ticket. The team was returning by charter in a week. By noon, the bag was ready. I stashed it in the back of the closet where my parents wouldn't look. "Jessica!" Mom's voice came from downstairs. "Are you going shopping?" "Yeah, I'm on my way," I shouted back. I spent the next 4 hours playing the role of the dutiful daughter. I went shopping, bought vegetables, herbs, the last little things for tomorrow's holiday. I smiled at the salesman, checked the freshness of the products, chose the most beautiful flowers. I played the role so convincingly that I almost believed it myself. In the evening, my mom made a general check of readiness. The groceries are in, dishes washed, tablecloths ironed, flowers are in the water. She ticked off her list. Tomorrow morning, you get up at 6 a.m., put the turkey in the marinade, 8 o'clock in the oven. Salads should be ready by 11. That makes sense, I nodded. That's great. I think it's going to be a memorable day. Unforgettable, that's for sure. I didn't sleep much that night. I lay in bed, listening to the silence of the house and going over my plan for tomorrow. I'd get up at 6, pretend to start cooking. At about 7, with my parents still asleep, I'll load my bag into the car. At 7:30, I'll write a note and put it on the kitchen table. At 8, I leave for the airport. A simple plan. The main thing is not to lose determination at the last moment. The alarm clock rang at 6 in the morning. I got up, got dressed, went down to the kitchen. The house was asleep. My parents had planned to get up at 8, so they had plenty of time before the guests arrived. I turned on the coffee maker, took the turkey out of the refrigerator. 4 pounds of frozen poultry. Tomorrow the guests would eat it, praising the golden crust and juicy meat. But I won't be the one cooking it. I put the turkey in the sink and turned on the cold water to give the appearance of defrosting. Then I took the salad vegetables out of the fridge and laid them out on the table as if I were going to carve them. A regimented preparation for cooking. At 7:30, she went up to her room and took her bag out of the closet. It was heavy, stuffed to the max, but compact. I carefully descended the stairs, trying not to squeak the steps, and carried the luggage out the back door. The morning was cool and misty, a typical April morning in Pasadena. I loaded the bag into the trunk of my Honda and went back inside. Now, the hard part, the note. I sat down at the kitchen table with a piece of paper and a pen. What to write? How do I explain what I did in a few sentences? I wrote 3 drafts before I settled on a final draft. Dear Mom and Dad, by the time you read this letter, I will be on an airplane flying to Hawaii. I have accepted a job offer to work with a cosmetics brand called Azure Coast. I know you were counting on me to help you with your anniversary. There are convenience foods in the refrigerator. Just heat them up and serve them nicely. All the other foods are ready to go too. This is not a whim or revenge. This is the only chance you have to change your life for the better. I hope you'll realize that someday. I'll be back in a week. Jessica. I reread the note a few times. Not too harsh, but not apologetic either. Explaining the facts without too much emotion. I signed, folded the sheet in half, and placed it on the kitchen table, leaning it against a vase of fruit. At 8:30, I was ready to leave. I had to wait another half hour. It was risky to leave early. My parents might wake up. I sat in the car in the driveway and looked at the house where I'd spent the last 3 years. White walls, red tile, neat lawn. A house that never became my home because it had no room for my dreams. At exactly 8 o'clock, I started the engine and pulled into the street. In the rearview mirror, the house grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared around the corner. The drive to the Los Angeles airport took an hour and 10 minutes. Sunday traffic was light, the sun finally dispersing the morning fog. I drove to the music, feeling strangely light. It was as if I'd dropped the backpack I'd been carrying for months. There was a surprise at the airport. There was a group of people with suitcases and professional equipment at the check-in desk, the Azure Coast team. I recognized Sophia from the photo, a tall brunette in her 40s in a stylish suit. "Jessica," she came up to me with a smile. "I'm glad you made up your mind after all. Rachel was very complimentary of your work." Thank you for the opportunity, I said. I really appreciate it. Meet the team. Sophia led me to the group. This is Marcus and Tommy, our photographers. Rita is the hairstylist. Jason is the project coordinator, and Carol is the second makeup artist. All were professionals with years of experience in the industry. I felt a slight trepidation. Would I be able to handle this level of work? Don't worry, Carol said, as if reading my mind. We are a friendly team. We'll help you if you need it. The flight to Honolulu lasted 6 hours. I sat by the window looking at the clouds and thinking about what was happening at home at that very second. My parents must have found the note by now. They're probably calling me on my phone, which I'd purposely left on silent. I wonder what they'll tell the guests. How will they explain the lack of a holiday table? Would they be able to heat up convenience foods, or would they have to order food from a restaurant? I pictured my mom's face when she read the note. Shock, rage, incomprehension. She was used to controlling my life, and a sudden rebellion would come as a shock to her. But I couldn't live up to their expectations anymore. I couldn't pretend to be content to be a domestic servant. I couldn't give up my dreams for their convenience. When the plane landed in Honolulu, I saw the emerald hills of the island, the white beaches, the turquoise ocean. Hawaii greeted us with sunshine and the scent of tropical flowers. Welcome to paradise, Carol said, looking out the next window. Paradise. Maybe she was right. At least for me, those 7 days could be the beginning of a whole new life. And somewhere in Pasadena, my parents were explaining to 25 guests why the holiday table was filled with plastic containers of supermarket food instead of homemade delicacies. For the first time in many months, I smiled in complete sincerity. The Royal Hawaiian Hotel was right on Waikiki Beach, and as we checked into our rooms, I felt, for the first time in months, that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. My room on the 10th floor overlooked the ocean, an endless blue that shimmered in every shade from turquoise to dark sapphire. Palm trees swayed in the breeze, and tourists sunbathed and children played on the beach. After check-in, the team gathered in the lobby for a brief briefing. Sophia unfolded a clipboard with the shooting schedule and began to explain the concept of the project. Azure Coast is launching a new summer line, Ocean Dreams, she explained. 5 products, shadow, blush, lip gloss, foundation fluid, and highlighter. All are nautical themed, with pearlescent shades and water-resistant formulas. Marcus, senior photographer, showed a mood board of references. The images should be fresh, natural, yet luxurious. Imagine mermaids who have just emerged from the ocean, wet hair, glowing skin, yet flawless makeup. The locations have been chosen, Jason added. Tomorrow we'll start at Lanikai Beach, then Manoa Falls, and finish at sunset at Diamond Head. I listened and could feel the excitement growing. This was a whole different level of work. Not a local shoot in Pasadena, but a full-blown international campaign with a budget of hundreds of thousands of dollars. The models fly in tomorrow morning, Sophia continued. 5 girls from different agencies. Jessica, you'll be paired with Carol. She'll take 3 models, you 2. I think you should start with Isabella and May. They have simpler types, easier to adapt the makeup. Simple types. I wasn't offended. I knew it made sense. Carol had been working with Azure Coast for 5 years and knew the ins and outs of their style. I needed to prove myself on less demanding tasks first. Breakfast is at 7 in the morning, and we leave for the location at 8, Jason concluded the briefing. We plan to shoot the first shots at 9 while the light is soft. In the evening, I sat on the balcony of my room, drinking passion fruit juice and watching the sunset. The sky was turning incredible shades of color, from gold through orange to deep pink. The sun was slowly setting on the horizon, leaving a path of light on the water. The phone rang around 8 p.m. local time. Mom's number. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. Jessica! Mom's voice sounded strained. Where are you? Hey, Mom! Hawaii! I know where you are. She was practically screaming. The question is, how could you do this to your family? I explained in the note. The note! Mom laughed bitterly. You left a note and ran away on our anniversary. We had guests, Jessica. 25 people and no food. Mom, I left all the groceries. All I had to do was warm up the convenience foods. For the silver wedding. Mom's voice was shaking with indignation. Do you have any idea how we looked in front of the in-laws? Honestly, I did, and for the first time it didn't upset me. I'm sorry the party didn't go as planned, I said calmly, but it was the only opportunity I had to accept an important job. Important work, Mom snorted. Jessica, stop playing movie star. Come home right now. I'll be back in a week, just like I wrote in the note. No, you're coming back tomorrow. We already found out there's a flight tomorrow night. Dad's ready to pay for the ticket. Mom, I signed a contract. I can't just leave in the middle of a movie. Yes, you can. You have to. After what you've done, it's the least you can do for your family. The conversation went on for another 10 minutes, but my mom still couldn't figure out that I wasn't coming back. She finally hung up on me, promising that Dad would call and put me in my place. Dad did call an hour later. His approach was more rational but no less harsh. Jessica, let's get this straight, he began. What exactly are you trying to prove with this act? I'm not trying to prove anything, Dad. I'm working. You're working? On what grounds? Who asked you to go there? Where's the guarantee you'll get paid? I explained to him about Azure Coast, about Sophia, about the contract, but he was skeptical at every word I said. You know what I'm thinking? He finally said. It's a scam. You've been lured to Hawaii under the pretense of a job, but in reality, someone is just scamming naive girls. Dad, this is a serious company. You can check their website, look at their portfolio. Websites aren't hard to fake. Jessica, you're a smart girl. How could you fall for that? It's no use. He didn't want to hear any explanations. To him, my trip was either a whim or a con job. You can't have it both ways. Tomorrow morning, you go to the airport and buy a ticket home. Dad finished the conversation. Otherwise, you can no longer count on our support. After this conversation, I turned off the phone. Enough family drama for today. Tomorrow was the first day of filming, and I needed a clear head. In the morning, the team gathered in the hotel lobby at 7 sharp. The models had indeed arrived, 5 beautiful girls of different types. Isabella, an Italian with golden skin and brown hair. May, an Asian with porcelain skin and stern facial features. Sophie, a red-headed French girl with freckles. Naomi, an African-American with perfect cheekbones. And Christina, a classic blonde with blue eyes. Working with Isabella and May today, Carol reminded me as we loaded the equipment into the van. Do you have any ideas for their looks? I see Isabella in warm golden brown colors, something like bronze goddess, I said. And May would go with cooler colors, silver pearl. Great ideas, Carol said. Go for it. Lanikai Beach surpassed all my expectations. White sand, clear turquoise water, palm trees leaning over the shore. The perfect place for a summer makeup shoot. The team quickly deployed equipment, reflectors, softboxes, a generator to recharge the cameras. I started with Isabella. I sat her on a folding chair under a large umbrella to protect her from the direct sun and began to study her face in natural light. Perfect skin by nature, expressive brown eyes, full lips, classic Mediterranean beauty. I want to emphasize your natural golden color, I explained to her. Pretend you're a sun goddess who has just emerged from the sea. I worked slowly and thoughtfully. First, I evened out my skin tone with the lightest layer of foundation from the new range. It was really water-resistant and gave a natural glow. Then I went for the eyes. Golden shadows with shimmering particles, carefully blended to a perfect transition. Peach blush on her cheekbones, highlighter on the protruding parts of her face. Oh my God, Isabella whispered, looking at herself in the mirror. I look like a picture. You are a picture, I smiled, applying the last touches of gloss to my lips. Marcus started shooting. Isabella posed against the ocean, and every shot was magical. Her golden makeup played in the sunlight, her skin glowed, her eyes seemed even more expressive. Jessica, this is amazing, shouted Tommy, watching the footage on the camera screen. The makeup matches the lighting perfectly. While Isabella was shooting, I was working with May. The Asian type required a completely different approach. No warm tones, just a cool range. I chose a silver gray shadow with a pearly undertone, pale pink blush, and a transparent gloss with a bluish undertone. "You look like a snow queen," Carol said, watching me work. "Very elegant." "Thank you," I said, finishing the contour of my eyes with fine eyeliner. I wanted to give the impression of cold seawater. May's shoot was also a success. Her cold beauty combined with the silver makeup created a stunning contrast to the warm gold of the beach. Marcus experimented with angles, catching the reflection of light on her face, and each shot was a work of art. By lunchtime, we had shot the first series for 2 products in the range. Sophia was reviewing the footage and was clearly pleased with the result. "Jessica, this is beyond expectations," she told me during a break. "Your makeup perfectly captures the concept of the brand." Those were the words I'd been waiting for my whole professional life. Recognition from the creative director of a major brand. The realization that my work was valued by true professionals. After lunch, we moved on to Manoa Falls. The jungle, the humidity, the sound of falling water, the rainbow in the spray, a completely different atmosphere. Here we planned shots with more dramatic makeup. I worked with Isabella on the image of a tropical Amazon, rich emerald shadows, bright coral-colored lips, expressive arrows. The makeup had to withstand the high humidity and the spray of the waterfall. "It's incredible how the makeup holds up," Isabella marveled as she was spritzed with water to create a fresh effect. "Normally by now it would have smeared off." "New waterproof formulas," I explained. Azure Coast had invested a lot of money in development. Indeed, the cosmetics worked flawlessly. Even under the direct spray of the waterfall, the makeup stayed clear and bright. It was a true revolution in the industry. In the evening, as we drove back to the hotel, Sophia approached me with a proposal. "Jessica, I really like your work. What would you say about joining our permanent team?" My heart skipped a beat. "Permanent team? We have contracts all over the world. Paris, Milan, New York, Tokyo. We need reliable makeup artists who understand the brand. Salary is steady, plus all travel expenses." It was a dream offer. Working with an international brand, travel, steady income, industry recognition. "Do I need to think about it?" I asked. "Sure, but not for too long. We have a shoot in Paris next month." In my room, I turned on my phone and saw 14 missed calls from my parents and 7 messages, all in the same vein. Demands to come home immediately, threats to withdraw support, accusations of selfishness. The last message from her mom was especially painful. "Jessica, if you don't come home tomorrow, consider yourself no longer a family. We're tired of your whims." I read the message several times. "You don't have a family anymore. For choosing to work in my specialty, for refusing to be a domestic, for believing in my talent." The strange thing is, I expected pain, tears, despair. But all I felt was relief. It was as if the heavy chains had finally fallen from my hands. I wrote back, "Mom, I'm working. I'm doing what I do best. If that's a reason for you to take my family away from me, then we have a different understanding of what love is." I sent the message and turned off my phone. Tomorrow was another day of filming, and I wanted to give it my all. The next morning, the crew worked at Sunset Beach. Huge waves, surfers in the distance, and dramatic skies were the perfect backdrop for the final series of shots. I created images in the style of a sea goddess. Wet hair, glowing skin, expressive makeup in cool colors. The work was more fun than ever. I felt a perfect harmony between my vision, the expectations of the team, and the possibilities of cosmetics. Every look I created was a perfect match to the concept. "Jessica, you are magic," Naomi said after the hour-long shoot. "I've never looked so good on camera. By the end of the day, we had enough footage for a full ad campaign." Sophia looked over the footage and glowed with satisfaction. "This is the best Azure Coast shoot we've done in the last 2 years," she announced to the whole team. "We've created something really special." In the evening, the team celebrated the success in the hotel restaurant. Marcus raised a toast to the fruitful work. Carol praised my professional flair. Sophia once again suggested an ongoing collaboration. "So what do you think?" she asked over dessert. Ready for the Paris shoot? Ready, I answered without hesitation. Absolutely ready. Great. I'll email you the contract tomorrow. That night I stood on the balcony, listening to the sound of the ocean, and thought about how my life had changed dramatically in 3 days. Back on Sunday morning, I was a domestic worker who was going to cook dinner for 25 people. Now I was a sought-after international makeup artist with a contract in my pocket. My parents called a few more times, but I didn't answer. Let them get used to the idea that their daughter had grown up and was making her own decisions about her life. Let them realize that threats and blackmail don't work anymore. Coming back to Los Angeles was unlike any of my previous visits home. Usually, I would get into my old Honda and drive to Pasadena, to my parents' house, to the usual routine and endless reminders that it was time to get a real job. This time, I got in a cab and drove to a hotel downtown. Sophia had booked a room for the team for a few days for final processing of the material. On the plane, I signed a contract with Azure Coast. 6 months of work with an international team, a base salary of $5,000 a month, plus bonuses for each shoot, all living expenses and flights. The figures seemed unrealistic after months of unsteady earnings of $200 or $300. Welcome to the big leagues, Carol said when I showed her the signed document. You're now officially part of the Azure Coast family. Family. The word sounded ironic after the recent conversations I'd had with my parents, but in a way, the team really had become family to me. People who appreciated my talent, supported my professional ambitions, and rejoiced in my successes. At the hotel, I finally turned on my phone and listened to the voicemails. 23 missed calls in a week. First angry demands to come back, then threats, then attempts to bargain. The last message from Dad was particularly telling. Jessica, we checked out this Azure Coast company. It really exists. If you actually got a job there, it's unexpected. Call me when you get back. We need to talk. Unexpected. Even now, when the facts were irrefutable, they couldn't just admit they were wrong. Not, we're proud of you, not, we're sorry we didn't believe you, just unexpected. I didn't bother calling back. Let them wait. The first 2 days in Los Angeles were spent at the Azure Coast office in Beverly Hills. The team processed the footage. I participated in selecting the best shots, advised retouchers on makeup color correction. Seeing my work on large monitors, discussing details with art directors, influencing the final result. It was a whole new level of involvement in the creative process. Jessica, look at this episode with May, Marcus called to me, pointing at the screen. Do you think I should enhance the lip gloss in post-production or leave it as is? Leave it as is, I replied, studying the shot. The gloss reads perfectly as it is. If you enhance it, you lose the naturalness. I agree. You have a great sense of balance. Moments like this gave me confidence. My opinion carried weight with the highest level of professionalism. I was not just a performer of other people's ideas, but a full participant in the creative process. On the third day, Sophia organized a meeting with the company's management. Marketing directors, the creative director, and the vice president for brand development gathered in the meeting room. I was introduced as a new member of the team, talked about my contribution to the Hawaii shoot. Jessica demonstrated exactly the vision Azure Coast needed, Sophia said. A fresh eye, impeccable technique, and an understanding of current trends. We are thrilled to have you join our family, said the vice president, shaking my hand. We are sure that our cooperation will be long and fruitful. After the meeting, Sophia invited me to lunch at an expensive restaurant on Rodeo Drive. We need to discuss your future, she said as we ordered our food. The Paris shoot is just the beginning. We have projects planned in Milan, New York, maybe Tokyo. Are you ready for that kind of mobility? More than ready, I answered without hesitation. That's great, but there is one practical issue. You need to solve the issue of housing. It's not convenient to stay in hotels all the time, and the company won't pay for it between projects. I've already thought about it. I'm planning on renting an apartment in LA. That's a wise decision. By the way, I have contacts for a good realtor. I can help you find one if you want. After lunch, Sophia did indeed introduce me to a realtor, an elegant woman named Diana, who specialized in housing for people in the creative professions. We agreed to meet the next day to view apartments. "What is your budget?" Diane asked over the phone. "Up to $2,500 a month," I replied, still not believing I could afford that amount. "I see. There are some great options in that range. Studios in good neighborhoods, studio apartments, maybe even something with a small balcony, my own apartment in LA. Until a month ago, it seemed like a pipe dream." That evening, I finally decided to call my parents. My mom answered, her voice sounding strained. "Jessica, you finally got through to us." "Hi, Mom. I've been busy with work." "Work," she repeated with doubt in her voice. "We've been checking into this company. It does exist. I told you. But that doesn't mean you're right." Mom raised her voice. "You abandoned the family on our big day. You ruined our anniversary. You made us make excuses for our guests." "Mom, I'm sorry the party didn't go as planned." "Sorry," she laughed bitterly. "Jessica, do you realize what you've done? Aunt Dorothy is still discussing the scandal with all the relatives." Aunt Dorothy. Of course she does. My mother put my family's opinion ahead of my career. "Where are you now?" Mom asked, after she calmed down a little. "Los Angeles, signing a contract with a company." "A contract?" She sounded interested. "What kind of contract?" "Full-time work with an international makeup team. 6 months to start, then an extension." Pause. I could almost hear Mom's thoughts rearranging themselves. A permanent job sounded more serious than a one-off shoot. How much do they pay?" "Enough to rent an apartment in LA and live on my own." "You're gonna move?" Mom's voice is getting quieter. "Yeah, I'm looking at apartments tomorrow." Another pause. Then Mom put Dad on the phone. "Jessica?" Dad's voice sounded cautious. "Mom says you got a steady job?" "Yes, Dad. And the pay's decent?" "Very good." "I see." He's been quiet. "Listen, why don't we talk in person? Come home this weekend, we can talk about it in private." Home. They still considered Pasadena my home, a place where I had to come back to report and get approval. "Dad, I'm very busy. I'm flying to Paris in 2 weeks for a shoot." "Paris?" He couldn't hide his surprise. "Really?" Totally serious. The conversation continued for another 10 minutes. The parents asked questions about the company, the terms of the contract, the plans for the future. The tone gradually changed from accusatory to interested. They were beginning to realize that my whim had turned into a serious career. But there was no apology for distrust and neglect. The next day, Diane showed me 5 apartments in different neighborhoods. A studio in Santa Monica with an ocean view, a 1-bedroom in West Hollywood with high ceilings, a 2-bedroom in Silver Lake with vintage furniture. All the options were 100 times better than my room at my parents' house. "I like this one the best," I said, standing on the balcony of the West Hollywood apartment. "Lots of light, great layout, nice neighborhood." "It's a good choice," Diana agreed. "A lot of people from the entertainment industry live here. You'll be in your own neighborhood. We did the paperwork the same day. Down payment, deposit, signing the lease, and 3 hours later I had the keys to my own apartment in Los Angeles." Standing in the empty living room, I felt a mixture of elation and unreality. A month ago, I'd been a free housekeeper at my parents' house. Now I was renting an apartment in one of the most expensive cities in the world and preparing for an international career. The next few days were spent settling in, buying furniture, dishes, linens, ordinary worldly things, but for me each purchase was a symbol of independence. My couch, my refrigerator, my coffee table, no one could dictate to me where to put them or how to use them. Rachel came over to help with the move and was amazed at the changes. "Jess, I don't recognize you," she said as she helped hang clothes in the closet. "It's like you've grown 10 years in 2 weeks." "Just finally getting my own life," I said, setting my makeup on the new dressing table. "How are your parents reacting to your success?" "They're slowly getting used to the idea that their daughter has grown up. However, they are not going to apologize for years of neglect." A week later, the Azure Coast commercials came out. First on the internet, banners on websites, social media posts, YouTube videos. Then in print publications, glossy magazines, women's magazines. And finally, outdoor advertising, billboards, posters in shopping centers, signs at bus stops. Seeing my work on a huge billboard on the Sunset Strip was an incredible feeling. Isabella's face in my makeup looked out over all of Los Angeles from 20 meters high. Perfect skin, expressive eyes, and navy-colored lips were all the result of my hands and my vision. "Congratulations! You've officially made it to the big leagues," Sophia texted me in a message. "The commercial is a huge success. Sales of the new line have exceeded expectations. The commercials have really been everywhere, in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Miami. And yes, in Pasadena too. My mom called the same day she saw the Colorado Boulevard billboard. Jessica, is this really your job?" Her voice sounded confused. "Yes, Mom, it's mine. It says Azure Coast. Is that the same company?" "It is." Long pause. "Jesus, Jessica, the whole Pasadena is talking about that billboard. Neighbors are calling, asking if you really did your makeup. And what do you say?" "Yeah, I don't know what to say. I never realized that your work could be, so visible. So visible." Another euphemism instead of a direct acknowledgement of my success. "Mom, I'm an international makeup artist. My work is meant to be visible." "Yeah, I'm starting to realize that." She's not talking. "Jessica, could you come down for the weekend? I'd like to talk to you normally." Normal. Without yelling and threatening and demanding that you quit, stupid. "I don't know, Mom. I'm really busy getting ready for the Paris shoot." "Oh, please, just for one day." There was an unfamiliar uncertainty in her voice. A woman who'd been convinced she was right all her life suddenly realized she could be wrong. "Okay," I agreed. "I'll be there on Saturday for lunch." The meeting with my parents had a strange atmosphere. They tried to act normal, but there was tension. Mom set the table with my favorite dishes. Dad asked about work and plans, but no one apologized for mistrusting me and trying to derail my trip to Hawaii. "Tell me more about Paris," Dad asked over dessert. "What's the shoot?" "The fall collection for the European market. A week of work, a team of 8 people, locations in the city center." "And the pay is good?" "Very good." "I see." He nodded. "What are the prospects? Is it a long-term partnership?" "If all goes well, the contract will be extended for a year. There may be projects in Milan, New York, Tokyo." Mom listened in silence, occasionally asking clarifying questions. She tried to understand how her loser daughter suddenly became a successful professional, how playing tassels had turned into an international career. "Jessica," she said at last, "perhaps we have been too cautious in our assessment of your plans. Cautious, not cruel, not unfair cautious." "Maybe," I agreed, not wanting to cause another conflict. "We just wanted you to have a stable life," Dad added. "You see, creative professions are so unpredictable." "Now I have both creativity and stability," I interrupted. "The best of both worlds." The conversation continued for another hour, but there was no real reconciliation. My parents recognized my success, but they weren't ready to admit their mistakes. They talked about misunderstandings and different visions for the future, but not about trying to break my dream and make me give up my calling. Returning to Los Angeles, I realized that my relationship with my family had changed forever. We would never be the same again. Too many hurtful words had been said, too much trust had been lost. But that was okay. I grew up, became independent, learned to stand up for my principles. In my new apartment, I sat down at my computer and started planning my Paris trip. I studied information about locations, looked through the works of French photographers, and prepared ideas for images. A week later, a new adventure was waiting for me in the city of Washes. The phone rang late at night. An unfamiliar number. "Jessica Campbell?" A woman's voice with a slight accent. "Yes, that's me. My name is Isabelle Durand. I'm the art director for Vogue magazine in France. Sophia gave me your number. We'd like to discuss a possible collaboration with you." Vogue, the most prestigious fashion magazine in the world. "I'm listening," I said, trying to hide my excitement. "We need a makeup artist for a shoot with Marion Cotillard next month. Sophia has been very complimentary of your work. Would you be interested? Marion Cotillard, Hollywood star, Oscar winner, style icon. Of course I'd be interested. Excellent. I'll send you the details of the project tomorrow morning. We'd love to have you on our team. After the conversation, I stood at the window for a long time, looking at the lights of the city. 2 months ago, I was a nobody, a girl who plays makeup artist and helps her parents with household chores. Now, I was invited to work with international stars for the planet's premier fashion publication. The path from domestic worker to international makeup artist was shorter than I thought. All it took was the courage to take the first step and stop asking for permission to live my own life. Tomorrow, I'd start preparing for the Paris shoot. A month later, I might be working with Marion Cotillard herself. Life finally became as I dreamed of seeing it, bright, rich, full of creative challenges and professional victories, and I was ready for any adventure that lay ahead. 3 weeks after moving to Los Angeles, I had to return to Pasadena. Not to my parents' house, to get my stuff. My contract with Azure Coast meant frequent travel, and I needed all the professional tools, books, and personal belongings that had been left at my parents' house. I gave no notice of the visit, just arrived on a Saturday morning when I knew my parents would be home. I parked in the driveway next to my mom's Camry and sat in the car for a few minutes, gathering my wits. The house looked exactly the same as it had a month ago when I left for Hawaii. White walls, red shingles, a neat lawn, but it wasn't home to me anymore, just a building where my stuff lay. Mom opened the door before I could knock. Apparently, she'd seen the car from the window. "Jessica," she said discreetly. "I didn't expect to see you." "Hi, Mom. I'm here to pick up some things." "To get some stuff?" She frowned. "What stuff?" "My stuff. Makeup, clothes, books, everything left in my room." Mom stepped aside, letting me into the house. The TV was on in the living room. Dad was watching the morning news while sipping coffee. When he saw me, he muted the sound. "Jessica, how are things in LA?" Good. Getting ready for the Paris shoot." "Yeah, my mom told me about it. Impressive. Impressive. Not, we're proud, not, well done, impressive. It's like my success was an interesting show they're watching from the sidelines." "Jessica says she's here to pick up her stuff," Mom informed Dad. "Pick up?" He raised his eyebrows. "Why? No one needs the room, everything stays where it is." They still didn't understand. They thought my independence was temporary, that I'd eventually come home and everything would go back to the way it was. "I don't live here anymore," I explained patiently. "I have my own apartment now." "But it's only temporary," Mom protested. "While you're working with this company. And then what?" "Then I'll work with other companies." "Mom, I'm a makeup artist. It's my profession." "But you do realize that creative careers are unpredictable, right?" Dad intervened. "Today you are in demand, and tomorrow the fashion will change." "Then I'll adapt. I'll find new clients, learn new techniques, take additional training." He shook his head. "Jessica, be realistic. It's better to have a backup plan. A backup plan." To them, my LA apartment, my contract with an international brand, the invitation from Vogue were all temporary fads that would end sooner or later. "My backup plan is to get even better at what I do," I replied, and headed for the stairs. My room was exactly as I had left it a month ago. The bed was made, a stack of old makeup magazines on the table, and the shelves were filled with makeup I hadn't taken with me to Hawaii. My parents hadn't touched a thing, as if they'd been waiting for me to return. I pulled my travel bags out of the closet and started packing. Professional makeup that had been left at home, books on coloring and makeup, photo albums of my early work, clothes that might come in handy when traveling. "What are you doing?" Mom stood in the doorway, watching my actions. "Packing." "But why take everything? Leave something here." Leaving something here meant keeping a connection to this place, to give my parents hope that I'd still have my life back. "I'll need all this stuff for work," I explained, putting the shadow palettes in my bag. "Jessica," Mom sat down on the edge of the bed. "I think you're changing things too drastically. Maybe you should be more gradual." "Gradual how?" "Well, work with this company but live at home. Save money, don't have to pay rent, and when you gain experience, then think about moving. Save money, live at home. That is, to return to the role of a domestic servant who helps with the household in gratitude for the shelter." "Mom, I have a stable job and a good salary. I can afford to rent an apartment." But why overpay? She wouldn't stop. It's your room, your stuff, your family, who a month ago threatened to withdraw their support for choosing my career over cooking dinner for my anniversary. Mom, I'm a grown woman. It's time for me to live on my own. But we miss you, she said with a pleading tone in her voice. The house is empty without you, they do. The free housekeeper or the daughter. It was hard to tell the difference. I continued to pack, not responding to my mom's attempts to talk me out of it. I packed my makeup in special cases, folded my clothes in my suitcase, packed my books in a box. Within an hour, my former room had turned into a regular guest room, depersonalized, ready for other people. Done, I announced, zipping up the last bag. Jessica, wait! My mom stood up and blocked my way. Let's have a serious talk. About what? About us. About family. You realize we love you, right? That we want what's best for you? They do. A kind of love that requires total submission to their idea of right living. Mom, if you really wanted what's best for me, you would have supported my career from the beginning, not tried to force me to give up my dream. We were just afraid you'd be disappointed. She raised her voice. Creative professions are so difficult, so many failures. But there are so many opportunities for those who don't give up. But you can see we've changed our minds. Mom was almost desperate. We recognize your success. We're proud of you. Proud. Only after my makeup was on billboards all over town. Only after the neighbors started asking about famous daughter. It's too late, Mom. Some words can't be taken back. I picked up my bags and headed for the stairs. Mom followed me, continuing to talk. Jessica, don't be so cruel. We're family. You can't cut your parents out of your life because of one misunderstanding. Years of neglecting my plans, trying to crush my dreams, threatening to take away my support. She called it one misunderstanding. In the living room, Dad was still sitting in front of the TV, pretending to watch the news. But I could tell from his tense posture that he was listening to every word of our conversation. Dad, I turned to him, I'm getting my stuff. I see, he replied, not turning around. So the decision is final. Yes, I see. He finally looked at me. What if something goes wrong with this job? If the contract doesn't get renewed? If there's not enough money to pay the rent? Then I'll find another job and another apartment. You won't come back to our place? No. He nodded as if he'd expected that answer. That's a shame, but it's your choice. Your choice. Not, we'll miss you, not, you can always count on us. Just a statement of fact. I carried my stuff to the car and started loading the trunk. My parents were out on the porch, watching me stack bags and boxes. Mom was crying, but with restraint, not making a scene. Dad stood next to her with a stone face. Jessica, Mom called out as I closed the trunk. Will you at least call? Sometimes, I answered honestly, when there's something to talk about. Will you come for the holidays? Holidays. The days when I was the cook and waitress while they hosted guests. We'll see. I got behind the wheel and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, I saw my parents standing on the porch giving me a look. Mom waved, Dad just watched. The usual picture of a family goodbye, if you didn't know what was going on behind it. As I drove out of their street, I felt not sadness, but relief. It was as if I'd shed a heavy weight I'd been carrying for years. The weight of other people's expectations, the need to justify my dreams, the fear of disappointing people who were never satisfied with me anyway. Driving through downtown Pasadena, I saw a billboard advertising Azure Coast at the corner of Colorado Boulevard and Fair Oaks, a huge poster with Isabella's face in my makeup. The fine print at the bottom read, Makeup, Jessica Campbell especially for Azure Coast, my name on a billboard in my hometown. Proof that a girl who plays with tassels was able to achieve international recognition. At a stoplight, a car with its windows open stopped nearby. The driver, a woman in her 40s, was talking on the phone. Yeah, I saw that billboard on Colorado, she said. Terrific makeup. I wonder who the makeup artist is. If only she knew that Jessica Campbell grew up 10 blocks from here and 5 years ago washed dishes at a local cafe to earn money for professional makeup. The drive to Los Angeles took an hour and a half. I listened to music, thought about my upcoming trip to Paris, and made plans for the coming months. A contract with Vogue, possible work with Marion Cotillard, new projects with Azure Coast. Life was full of prospects. In my apartment, I put the things I'd brought into their places. Cosmetics occupied a shelf in the bathroom, books stood in a row on the shelf, clothes filled the closet. My whole life was here now, past and present united in one place. In the evening, Sophia called with the final details of the Paris trip. "Jessica, how are the preparations going? The flight leaves in 3 days. Everything's all set. Picked up the rest of my stuff from the house today." "That's great. Oh, by the way, there's an update on the Vogue project. Isabel confirmed you're doing a shoot with Marion Cotillard. It'll be right after our Paris shoot. Marion Cotillard, a star I've watched in movies, dreaming of working with people like that someday." "Unbelievable," I said. "I'm ready. I'm sure I'm ready. You have talent, Jessica, and more importantly, character. Not everyone would give up a family holiday to pursue a career, a family party. If she knew that holiday meant years of humiliation and misunderstanding for me." "Sometimes you have to choose between convenience and your dreams," I said, "and you chose right." After talking to Sophia, I stood on the balcony for a long time, admiring the lights of Los Angeles, a city of opportunity where dreams become reality for those who are willing to fight for them. A month ago, I was a domestic worker who was afraid of disappointing my parents. Now I'm an international makeup artist ready to work with international stars. The path wasn't as difficult as it seemed. All it took was the courage to say no to those who tried to break my dream, the courage to believe in myself more than other people's doubts. The phone rang late that night. Mom's number. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. "Jessica." Her voice sounded tired. "Did you make it?" "Yeah, Mom. I'm fine." "Look," I wanted to say. She was quiet. "Maybe we really were too careful. With your job, I mean. Careful." She still couldn't pronounce the word wrong. "Maybe," I agreed. "And another thing. Mrs. Carter's neighbor called today. She asked about the billboard on Colorado. She said she was proud of our family. Proud of our family. Now that my success was public, my parents were proud of me." "That's good to hear. Jessica, will you call from Paris?" "Of course, Mom. I will. I will. Take care of yourself." After the conversation, I couldn't sleep for a long time. I thought about how our relationship had changed, how my parents were slowly getting used to the idea that their daughter had grown up and become independent. Maybe in time we would find a new language of communication, without trying to control my life on their part and without resentment of the past on mine. Or maybe we won't. Maybe some relationships can't be fixed and you just have to accept that as a given. Either way, I was no longer going to sacrifice my dreams for someone else's comfort, even if those strangers were the people closest to me. 3 days later, Paris was waiting for me. A month later, a shoot with Marion Cotillard for Vogue. 6 months later, who knows, maybe Tokyo or New York. Life finally became what I had imagined it to be. Bright, intense, full of professional challenges and creative discoveries. And all this became possible thanks to one simple decision: to stop asking permission for my own happiness. Have you ever faced a situation when people close to you did not support your dreams? Have you had to choose between your family and your vocation? Tell me your stories in the comments. I read every post and am always happy to know that my experience helped someone else find the strength to change. Remember, no one has the right to dictate to you how to live your life, even if those people are called parents. Your life belongs to you alone, and only you decide how to make it. If my story has inspired you to make a change in your own life, give it a like and share the post with others who might need it. Sometimes one story can change someone's destiny. See you in the next posts, and remember, dreams come true for those who are willing to fight for them.